tight pores that should be small somehow get inflamed and the pores get big, then large molecules that normally can't get across that membrane can. Sometimes whole bacteria can go from the inside of the gut to the inside of the body. When that happens, there's an influx of a lot of foreign substances that should not come across into the body. And what you wind up with is a challenge to the immune system. And the part that I didn't realize is that 60% of all the immune cells in the human body are in the intestinal tract. So they're right there. And if you flood it and it loses its control and it starts overreacting, that's when you start seeing things like autoimmune diseases and illnesses like what you had.
Well, it turned out I was just totally toxic.
Well, we couldn't even take you out to a restaurant because we had to bring only food that she would be able to bring from home. But the good news is oftentimes you had the best meal. So that was a turning point for me. And it really changed how I thought about the practice of medicine.
I never saw anything like it. You were just almost possessed with trying to find more information and learning about other ways to go about treating your patients besides just conventional medicine. You would read books and then you would read them over again and you would call the authors and just, you know, have everything backed up that you were learning about. And then Russ helped you a lot too.
Oh yeah, well it was so far out of my discipline that I didn't even know where to start. And so it was like taking my own course, and it's been a course ever since about 1991 to now. Oh, so it's been more than, it's almost 18 years that I've been reading this stuff avidly almost every day.
So at first you were so enthusiastic and you started trying to apply some of these different ideas with your patients. And how did you feel about how your colleagues might react or your patients?
Well, it's so far out of the box, okay, that I was very nervous. As soon as I started telling my people in my call group that I was doing more nutritional medicine and natural therapies and looking into other approaches that were not in the mainstream, I expected the evil eye, you know, and I thought my patients thought I'd gone around the bend too, and I could anticipate my medical board coming after me saying, "What are you doing?" And at the beginning, I remember giving a talk at John Muir Hospital where I was practicing. And there was standing room only because people knew what I was going to do. And when it was over, they cheered. And they told me how proud they were of me and that it was really a sensational thing that I could look a little bit deeper than what we had done in our training. But that was short-lived. It was probably just a couple of months later when what I had embarked on was so different from what was in the mainstream that it would be hard to invoke that kind of practice in a hospital setting, and it would be hard to treat my patients or the patients of my practitioners, of my colleagues, if I was on call for them that way. So we got to a place where there was almost an impasse, and that's when I went my own way.
Well, so often medical doctors that practice with conventional medicine tend to treat symptoms rather than going to the cause as much as some of the alternatives do, I think. And Dr. Jaffe introduced you to the Orthomolecular Health Medicine Society, where they focus more on causes and cellular metabolism and so forth. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. I mean, orthomolecular medicine really just means using natural substances and looking at cell biochemistry a lot deeper than what we're taught in the mainstream. I didn't have this kind of training in medical school. In fact, I only had an hour of nutrition in medical school. It's not much different today. And yet, how the cell works and its metabolism is critical in trying to get to the bottom of the causes of what's going wrong. So I began to think that way, and now I practice that way, and I feel like it's a superior way to go. You know, in the mainstream, what we do is we look for all these magic bullets. We want drugs and surgeries and technologies to try and stop the symptoms. And I think everybody deserves to have their symptoms treated. We shouldn't have to suffer. But we should always be going down as deep as we can to find what the primary cause is. So that was a lot of what orthomolecular medicine taught me. And of course, I still practice that way today.
Well, another thing, too, is rather than going for the technology that you were mentioning in the surgery and the medications and so forth, if a person can correct things and they can do it with lifestyle, that's the way to go, or prevention. is a lot better, and you can do that with lifestyle. So one of the other things that I think you've realized and you've learned so much about is how there are alternatives. There are other types of healthcare practitioners besides MDs that you have learned to work with. And many times I think MDs tend to not know much about what they do, so that they don't call on them as often, and you've really made it your business to learn what other disciplines have to offer.
Well, that's what we've been doing at the Health Medicine Forum for the past 15 years. And it's been one heck of an education for me, because I've had the chance to moderate 350 events where we bring different practitioners to the same table at the same time. So the whole idea of doing natural medicine, but lifestyle medicine, really was the key.
And also learning what a patient's whole life story is, getting to know your patients a little better. So often nowadays with the HMOs and the PPOs and so forth, the doctors don't really have very much time with their patients. I think that the doctors basically are not really happy about that either.
Well, doctors are employees now. They're really employees of big corporations, either like Kaiser or the John Muir Medical Group that does it that way, or many of the other IPOs and different kinds of groups that there are. But what we need to do is get back to the basics of looking at what is healthcare really supposed to be about. I mean, it's looking at how you live your life first, and using the invasive strategies as the last resort. So what you eat, how much exercise you get, reducing your stress, making sure that you have enough sleep, and having a meaningful purpose in your life is really the primary medicine. And that's what we've learned in our exploration through the Health Medicine Forum. And what we've based it on is integrative, holistic, person-centered preventive care. And we do that in a way where we integrate that into the person's whole life story and how that fits with everything that they do that's connected to the universe. And that's why we call it what Ken Wilber is calling integral health medicine. So that's where our focus is these days. And we'll talk more about that later in the book.
And so often I think doctors don't focus very much on building up our body's defenses, to build up our immune system, about detoxification and nutrition.
Those are foreign concepts in medicine. We don't really look at detoxification at all. I mean, if we do, it's the very last thing on the list. And when it comes to supporting wellness, it goes back to that old argument that between Pasteur and Beauchamp, where Pasteur says we should be fighting against nature, we should be fighting the bugs, we should be attacking the disease, and Beauchamp saying no, we should be supporting what the human defense systems are like. You know, Albert Schweitzer coined it very nicely when he said, nature does the healing, and we as doctors kind of stand around and watch it and do what we can to support the process.
And so often mask the symptoms by giving medications and so forth. And many times symptoms can lead you to an answer of what's wrong with somebody. I think medical doctors know this. For example, when a patient has an appendicitis, basically, isn't that how you diagnose appendicitis, is by the symptoms, exactly where the pain is and some of the tests that they do?
Well, we do a lot diagnostically that's very good work, and when you get to a place where you need an operation because you have an infected appendix or something like that, I mean, we're very good at doing that, and so we achieve that. I think there's an integrative nature to healthcare that involves many different disciplines, including Western medicine, and later in the book we'll talk more about where you should start and how we should approach that.
Nowadays, too, with so much emphasis on medication, and we're thinking about how a person is really a all-in-one, body, mind, emotion, and spirit. And there's, you know, we all know that there's psychotherapy and there's psychiatrists. And nowadays, I think that the emotional side for people isn't really tended to as much as what it used to be, because a lot of the psychiatrists have become psychopharmacologists, and then they refer the patients to see someone else like a psychologist.
We've gotten away from the concept of what holism is, which I would say is looking at the whole person, body, mind, emotion, and spirit, and looking at that as an inseparable combination of body, mind, emotion, and spirit. So you can't take out a body or a mind or an emotion or a spirit. We're hardwired to respond as the whole human being, and we have no choice. So we will always respond in all those